I don't want if it's off color.
Hey, we're live, bro.
Awesome.
We're going with it.
Yeah, it was super random too. Like we just
Apocalypse Now is like all-time movie.
Yeah.
Entertainment value and like just genius movie making.
Absolutely genius. And everything I heard about Marlon Brando as an actor sounds like he was a nightmare on set.
Really?
And just didn't want to learn his lines. But he comes across as a genius in the film. So, but yeah. I had totally forgotten about the surf-obsessed commanding officer.
Yeah, that's when the American helicopters are moving in.
Yeah,
onto the beach, right? And you got what's his name? I just thought Colonel Slade, but that's from Son of a Woman. We have what's the guy's name? Robert Duvall.
Yeah.
With the flat brim army hat, and he's like,
that is Robert Duvall, isn't it?
And also, like, yes, it is. That's when he's like, wow. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Yeah. It smells like victory.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Like chock full of lines like that. And also, you know what also was like, wait a minute, that's him. So Martin Sheen, right?
Yep.
He's like, I watched it a few years ago, and it's like, that's Charlie Sheen. It's like, no. It's too early. It's like, was it 79 or something like that? It's like, that's Martin Sheen. And they look like identical.
Well, it's cool that they both had their Vietnam movie, you know?
Let's see. What is Charlie Sheen has what?
Platoon.
Oh my God. Those are like both like, you know, in the canon
classics.
Of like of war cinema.
Like
Vietnam.
So Apocalypse Now, Platoon, Full Metal Jacket. And like that's the trifecta.
The trilogy there. What about Predator? Yeah. What about Predator?
Oh, dude. I mean, okay, so like Predator.
That's not based on a true story.
Well, absolutely. You wouldn't know about it.
Now we're really getting into it. You know.
But yeah, like Predator, Gladiator. That was another one of those like you must watch if you're a young man in the
Braveheart.
Braveheart.
I mean, I think it just stops with Braveheart for me.
Yeah.
I mean, when that came out, that was like 94 maybe, and maybe 95, I think. And I was just like in 8th grade. I remember, oh my gosh, I remember the first time watching it. I was sitting in my family with my dad and my sister, and I was like in the chair in the corner, and like a scene came on, and they had the beautiful like bagpipe music and everything, and William Wallace is like horse trotting around the countryside and this music and everything. I was thinking about my girlfriend and like how like she like broke up with me, and I was like crying in the corner. And my dad's my and Linda's like, my dad's like, are you okay? And Linda's like, he's not crying about the movie.
Yeah, he's just upset.
It's just it got me in a moment, you know.
Yeah, Mel Gibson has like. Did you like The Patriot?
Yeah. I don't think on the same level. No, there's an element of it's an interesting point. You know, obviously it's like America. It's the revolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a romantic quality of unknown, like when you see movies that like kind of go on over in Europe or on the other side of the world. It's like, you know, the Peloponnesian War. I'm like, oh my God, Thermopylae. Like, wow, there's just like a lot of myth to like it that just I don't know, just it does it for me.
You know, one of my if I were ever to make a career change and have the determination and
I know what you're gonna say
ability, but
teach history.
Well, I would love to teach history.
You love history. I know that.
I love history, but since HBO has been coming out and doing all these like mini series and stuff like that, and you had the success of Band of Brothers and the Pacific.
Yeah,
I think they should do a series like that with that kind of production value, based on the Second Punic War, with like Hannibal coming over the Alps and Scipio going down to North Africa, and like that would be.
It's so funny that you bring this up because I was just talking with who about this. I was on a walk. Oh, is it my buddy Trevor? Yeah, my buddy Trevor Goss, who's on the podcast probably about a month ago, a high school friend of mine. And I'm like, it fascinates me to no end that story. But in particular, what really gets me is when Hannibal is outside the gates of Rome, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, he's destroyed, he's wreaked havoc and ravaged the whole boot of Italy down to Rome. And he's like, I'm ready to go attack and take down Rome and achieve the goal. And he's like, but I'm not gonna, because I don't have enough troops. And he's like, and he like radios back, he sends envoys to Carthage, and they're like, no, you've already used all your allowance is up.
You're on your own,
bro. And he stays there, bro. He stays there for 10 years.
Yeah.
Encamped outside the gates of Rome while Scipio is just like, going to school on Hannibal, but like 10 years. And it was like, what a like a failure on Carthage part. Like, drop that ball.
Well,
I'd say
I'm not like a deep Punic War historian, but
that's why you want the series.
It would be epic. From what I understand, is like it just kind of wasn't seen. They weren't trying to win a total war, like a absolute 100% defeat of Rome. It was more of just like we want you guys to back off and leave us alone. And so
you do your thing on your side of the Mediterranean, and we'll do ours in Northern Africa. Just leave us alone.
So the idea of destroying Rome didn't really, I don't know
either, but he was ready to do it.
He was right there, dude.
Anyway. All right, Tony Peck, you're my man. You're turning into certainly to a really good friend of mine, and a cousin. You're my cuz, man. My uncle, my father's older brother Dave, is married to Tony's mother, Virginia, and they happen to live in Virginia. And
the irony of life.
Coincidence. I mean, there's got to be something. There's got to be something in there.
Mm-hmm.
And Virginia is a beautiful soul, and so is Tony. So on Veteran, it's 11:30 on my time. So we got a half hour, dude. We'll roll right into Veterans Day. I feel like it's like New Year's Eve.
We're gonna drop on it. Yeah.
This is the latest I've been up in like podcasting, and like I don't know.
Yeah, it's past my bedtime. My kids are gonna wake me up at 5 in the morning.
I appreciate you staying up. Text yesterday. I'm like, hey, we should do this, man. But anyway, Tony was once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine, correct?
That's what they tell me.
You're in the Corps. Okay.
My six-pack is long faded, but yeah.
I want to get in trouble. That's why we're doing it remotely.
Yeah.
No. So he's a Marine. He was a Marine. And then went over to Afghanistan, correct?
Yeah, Iraq first, and then Afghanistan.
You did two?
Yeah,
two tours.
Yep, I was in for just 4 years and got out. And
let me ask you like a kind of initial sort of question or whatever. What was your motivation in the beginning, like military?
This is like a crucial question that so many veterans, I think, really actually struggle to answer, or the duty service members struggle to answer sometimes.
Yeah.
I would say, with 100% honesty and transparency, my situation was I had gone off to Lynchburg College, kind of aimless, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I knew that I wanted to play lacrosse, but I wasn't really like motivated or good enough. Maybe if I'd spent more time trying and training, could have, but I didn't have any direction. And I think that an issue for some young men and women is if you don't have direction at that age, it's very difficult to self-motivate and find purpose. And so I come from a military family. Basically everybody, I always joke that it's like Lieutenant Dan's family without all the death. You know, we have family members going back and fighting in every war, back to the revolution, actually. And I think we, on my mom's side, even to the French and Indian War. But anyways,
So there's blood. I mean, there is something to be said, I think, for number one, like knowing that, maybe a little bit of placebo there, but also like, you get things passed down, and that's, it's hereditary. It can be hereditary.
Well, there's definitely some obstinance in the family, and some ego probably. But for me, it was, I didn't know how else to prove myself at that age. I felt that I was capable of more than what I was doing. And we were at war, so Bush was still president. Things weren't going well in Iraq or Afghanistan at the moment. Everything had kind of been shifted from Afghanistan to Iraq, and the second battle of Fallujah happened later on in high school for me. And so it happened simultaneously with YouTube coming out. And so I know a lot of us grew up, Marines and service members of my generation grew up kind of watching YouTube. Before it was heavily policed, you would see straight up gun battles, like Fallujah fights, firefights. There was a famous video of like a Taliban insurgent with an RPG getting gunned down in the streets of Fallujah. And I will always remember that video. And so it just resonated like, okay, if I can't go off to college and succeed that way, which I clearly was not capable of at the time, I'll go in the military. And my whole family is Air Force. And so me being me, it's like, well, I can't do that because I can't do it.
Gotta be a little different.
I gotta be different. So, I went into the Marine Corps, and since it was a time of war, there was the youthful ambition to test yourself, and so the infantry was the quickest way to do that.
Yeah. And that was what, like 03?
No, it was 2007 when I went in.
Okay. What am I thinking?
Yeah, so I graduated high school in 2006, and then I tried college for like a semester and a half, dropped out, and then a few weeks later, I went to boot camp. And funny story, I went to boot camp like 2 months early because my recruiter promised me a $3,000 signing bonus, and me being an idiot, I didn't get that in writing, and so I didn't get the $3,000. Dude, just he got me, dude. He bullshitted me.
Yeah.
So I went.
If you got it in ink or something, if you put it, you trusted the guy.
I trusted the system.
Oh, come on, man.
But I went to Paris Island in July, so yeah, it wasn't time. It was very hot.
That's Paris Island is California? No.
San Diego is where the recruit depot is in California. Paris Island's South Carolina.
That's right.
Pretty close to Charleston, South Carolina.
That's some that place, South Carolina in July.
It's humid, it's hot, brutal. It's miserable. Yeah, nothing's fun about boot camp anyway. Yeah. There actually is a lot of fun stuff, but it was very uncomfortable. Yeah.
So when you got there, you got the boot camp. How long was boot camp?
What was it? 12 or 13 weeks? I can't remember if it was 12 or 13 weeks. And so real quick, it's like broken up into 3 different phases. The first phase is basically you getting messed up and kind of they break you down mentally. Second phase is basically all of your weapons training. You go to the rifle range. And then the third phase is kind of like your tests, I think, what do they call it? Basic warrior training and like your crucible, and they make you into a Marine and then you graduate.
So the first segment, let's say it's like 3 months, right? Ish. First month is like, hey, it's like, are you material? Like it's a vetting process, I would think, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, should we keep spending time on this guy? Let's quit.
Well, it's fascinating actually is, so people talk about an attrition rate and like special forces training and stuff like that. There's a high attrition rate, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how this is in the Army or the Navy. I imagine it's very similar, but you sign that dotted line. You belong to the government, and they're going to get you through boot camp if they can. And so you have people who like they wash back or whatever. They get reset in boot camp, and it takes them 5-6 months to get through, but they'll push you through. And it doesn't mean that you're going to get a decent job. You might be, cleaning out toilets for your entire 4 years, but yeah, they'll make sure that you go through. You sign on your property basically at this point.
Even if like you're like I don't want to do it, I quit.
They have a concept. What is it? I think this is when you get to your unit though. There's a concept called failure to adapt, but maybe they can apply it earlier. There are people that, yeah, definitely mental health cases that, if the person seems legitimate, they'll wash you out and you'll separate. It's basically like an annulment,
Yeah.
But for the most part, they will try to get you through boot camp.
Interesting.
If you're really fighting it, they will make your life a living hell. It'll be like you'll be stuck in purgatory for 5 or 6 months.
How was it for you? I mean, that first month. I mean, you going in like you're like, I need some help. I need some direction. I need some discipline. It takes a lot of self-awareness for a young man to be like, you know what? I'm admitting that like, this is what I have that's needs work. That's all the sort of like the rehab sort of thing. The first step is the mission, and they're like, all right, I'm going to do this. And so when you get in there, did you find yourself hardening? Did you find yourself like not enjoying, but like I'm in the right place, I made the right decision or not?
So the first few days is a what the fuck moment. Why did I do this?
Yeah.
Voluntarily put myself in this situation because you're being stripped of your individuality, right? Like, and you're losing yourself. And to an American, that is one of the worst things that you can do to us. Like, don't you know who I am? I'm important to myself. But so you get kind of broken down. And so I definitely hardened to the situation, but not in the way that I was not the guy. I had buddies who were the like quintessential hardcore badass Marines, right? That was not me. I was just always laughing and joking and getting in trouble for laughing. And I got big teeth, like easy for the drill instructor to see me laughing and then come over and mess my life up. And so I was always getting in trouble for laughing. It was probably about 3 or 4 weeks in that I realized that they couldn't really mess me up. And so I was just going to laugh my way through. And for the most part, I got through largely unnoticed, but there were a couple times where I really messed up. And one time in particular, the whole platoon got probably
punished or whatever. Yeah. I mean, what, for laughing? What'd you do?
Yeah. It's so dumb so every night when they would get accountability of all of the recruits.
Yeah.
So you can picture like a Full Metal Jacket. They're all standing facing inboard that central walkway, right? And it's time everyone's in their like short skinny shorts and their t-shirt, but you had to hold out this thing called your blue money valuable bag, and it held your wallet and like if you were wearing a watch, or I don't remember, but like it had your money and your ID that you brought to boot camp, and you had to hold it out so the drill instructor could see that you still had it and hadn't been stolen. This was the way they did accountability every night. You hold it out at attention and you would yell your number when it got to you and you would bring it down. For whatever reason, I was like number 67 or 68 or something. When it got to me, I decided that I was going to squeal my number. And so when you're holding it out, you're looking at the guy to your right. So you can't see what's in front of you. And so I squealed my number out high pitched as loud as I could. I just wanted to, what's going to happen to me.
What was your number?
Like 67 or 68.
Yeah.
So when I squeal the number, as loudly as I can, like a screeching noise. And when I look forward and bring my hand down, my drill instructor is right there. Like, oh, you think that's funny, huh? You think that's funny?
Yeah, I kind of do.
Yeah. But it was not.
I know. I mean, it was, but it's not. Like, it's all about context, right?
We had to do this thing called scuzz brush the bulkhead.
Did the rest of your guys like laugh, or they're like, oh
no,
Tony?
So yeah, basically like
you again.
God,
this guy.
Why do you?
Damn it, Leroy.
Yeah, pretty much. So you have this thing called scuzz brush in the bulkhead. You have this like super thick bristled like brush.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get down to like a deep squat duck walk thing, and you have to, like, as fast as you can, scuzz is what they call it, from the center of the walkway to the bulkhead, which is the wall. So you have a line of guys on each side going to the wall and back to the center, and the wall back to the center in this full deep squat. And they had us do that for I don't know, like an hour and a half. And we had something called a guidon, which is a flag, which was like, if you were a decent platoon, you'd get your follow series or lead series guidon. It was like a thing of honor. Well, they had this kid, the drill instructor had this kid. This is after, we were supposed to be in our racks asleep at this point.
Uh-huh.
This kid go in and piss on the guidon, and then this kid had to scuzz down the center of the walkway with this thing, the catwalk.
Uh-huh.
So he's like rubbing his piss into what we're like cleaning.
Great.
Back and forth.
Great.
And dude, there were kids crying, their legs were giving out, kid vomited, a kid slipped and busted his eye open. And they were like, yeah, I thought I was gonna get fucking shanked that night, dude. Like I thought I was fucked. So
that your mates were gonna come after you.
Yeah, it was like a blanket party,
Beat you up.
But the drill instructor from underneath, so we were at the top, we were at the third floor of the barracks. The drill instructor from underneath us, actually the senior drill instructor, came up and was like, what the fuck is going on? And like corrected the drill instructor that was, clearly breaking the rules.
It was too much.
It was heavy. Yeah, it was heavy.
Yeah.
I didn't get shanked. I didn't get beat up.
I didn't mess with you too bad.
No, but yeah.
So you laughed your way through.
Yeah.
Oh, if not on the outside, on the inside. It's like, I don't know. You gotta
I was probably crying on the inside. On the outside, I was laughing.
Yeah. Right. Crying is like,
whatever.
It's a little bit better. Laughing is a little better than crying.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that like sometimes you can't tell if someone's, are you laughing or you're crying?
Yeah.
It's
you're
like
hysterical.
a similar. What's that? You're just hysterical.
You're hysterical in one way or another.
Exactly right. You're not asleep.
Right.
You're stimulated in some sort of way.
Yeah.
It's either really good or really bad. So you got through that.
Mm-hmm.
And then after boot camp, then what?
So then you go through infantry. And that, for us, that was in North Carolina. And then after that, you go to your unit. So it's going to the fleet. Like now you're a fleet Marine, you're actually assigned to a unit. And that's where like shit actually is kind of rough, right? Like boot camp, School of Infantry, there's a lot of oversight occurring. Like people are paying attention to what's happening to the recruits and the young Marines. When you get to your unit and you're dealing with like guys who have deployed 3 or 4 times. So my super seniors, which were like guys who had deployed twice with the unit before I arrived. So my super seniors were, I think they were Korengal Valley vets. They're Afghanistan vets, and Korengal Valley Operation Mountain Lion was a pretty intense operation. And then there were still a few guys who had been their seniors that were Second Battle of Fallujah vets. So like the unit that I got assigned to was a very, very heavily deployed veteran unit with collective PTSD out the ass.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like getting to the unit was actually probably the most startling thing. And a lot of hazing and stuff like that, which culturally there was a major shift underway when I joined, mainly the last couple of years I was in, where hazing was the leadership was trying to excise hazing, get rid of it. And because it had gotten pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't hazed horribly, but definitely had some moments. Yeah, it's pretty rough until you're like a month or two out from going on your first deployment. And then your seniors start to loosen up a bit, care about you. And
because they're going to need you.
Yeah, pretty much.
We got to come together as a unit here.
And you know, it's just human nature. Like, yeah, they've been picking on us for several months, but they've come to like us, and they see us as their, to use a totally uncouth word, retarded little brothers, basically. He doesn't know how to breathe practically on his own, but we'll take care of Tony.
We'll keep him around.
Keep him around.
Yeah, we kind of more the merrier when we're over there. Okay,
right. We'll put him in front of us.
Frank is numbers, exactly. Nothing else. Yeah. Human shield.
Yeah, probably is how they saw us.
Oh my gosh.
And then you get to your first deployment, and when you're out there actually operating, it very quickly goes from you're a boot who doesn't know anything to you're a Marine. That's like, it's a month or two into your first deployment, you finally feel like you've made it. Like you can wear the badge of I'm a Marine. I'm a real Marine now. Kind of.
Because the way people treat you with respect, or just the way, I don't know, what you're doing has more gravity and weight to it, such that like you take yourself more seriously.
You're welcomed into the brotherhood.
It's all about brotherhood, I would imagine.
Yeah,
band of brothers.
The guys who are directly over you, your leadership, direct leadership, the small unit leaders, your lance corporals and sergeants, they're kind of embracing you as one of their own now. They'll still tease you because that's how it works, but like you're one of them. And once you feel like you're one of them, one of us, once you're that, it's like a huge confidence booster, and you got that swagger now.
Yeah. I was gonna say, since military is, and it needs to be, so man, all these ranks and everything, it's very orderly. You have to respect your higher ranking officer, like the whole salute thing, right? Mm-hmm. I would think a lot of sort of the validation, and they say confidence, comes from the vibe you're getting from the people around you, your peers, your superiors. I don't know about your inferiors, but and unlike some professions, you're just like, I think I'm doing okay. I think that was good. Like kind of like if you work for yourself in a way, almost the opposite of being like a one-man show would be being in an organization like the military, when there's like you know where you stand, bro.
Absolutely. Well, you absolutely do. But it's very interesting to. So I was enlisted, which means that I was like a private in
you went through the whole process, right?
Yeah. So I started out the lowest that you can in the totem ranks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was at a time, my last name is Peck. I was at a time Private Peck, which didn't work out in my favor at boot camp at all. Right. I married an officer. So when we were dating, she deployed to Afghanistan, and so I actually got to kind of from afar experience what a deployment was like for her. For me and for my peers in my unit, we went over as like we were our own best friends. We had trained together. We knew each other. It was just a very intimate, tight-knit group of buddies. It's like deploying with a fraternity with guns, like that's basically what it was.
Mm-hmm.
For her, it was a solo experience. She was an executive officer that deployed to support a maintenance squadron in Afghanistan. And so she went over there on her own. She didn't know anybody when she got there. She was totally on her own. And so there are vastly, just like anywhere, there are vastly different experiences. But for me, what I can speak to is like, yeah, the way that you are accepted or not accepted by your immediate peer group is largely what matters to an infantry guy.
I mean, if like, the thought is like they knew you were Marine material, when you're at boot camp, if you, I don't know, I would imagine even if you can do all the physical stuff and the mental things, but if the officers see that you might not be able to, you might not fit in to that brotherhood, they might let you through, but like,
So what you're speaking to, there's something that happens, and it's a very brutal process. I don't know to what extent it still happens or how often it happened in other units, but speaking from anecdotal experience,
yeah.
When I first got to my unit and I saw it for every new generation of Marines that came in, there is a kind of gut intuitive self-selection that occurs. And very quickly, even the Marines that make it all the way through boot camp and School of Infantry and they get to the fleet, they get to their unit, there is a self-selection that occurs. And those people are the ones that aren't deemed worthy, that people don't trust. It is not a comfortable experience for them. And, they oftentimes struggle a lot and most of the time end up not deploying with the unit. And so that I would say that, out of 200, 300 Marines that get to a unit, which would be a very large boot drop, but out of 200, 300 Marines, probably 15, 20 of them, maybe less than 10, like 8%, 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't end up deploying. They don't,
and that's their
make the cut.
It's their, it's not, is it their say or is it what the superiors or make the roster? I would think the latter, right?
Dependent, probably a mixture of both.
Yeah. I mean, it also like, maybe they're just not in the right unit, maybe they're the wrong sort of like,
could be
place within the military.
That's absolutely correct. I think there are plenty of guys that didn't make it in the infantry that would have done just fine and probably ended up doing just fine elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's just a different world. It's just a little bit more primal and ridiculous of a world. A wartime infantry unit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that was Iraq, right?
Yeah. So Iraq was kind of, by really any metric, Iraq was a relatively quiet deployment for us. But it was just, we call it, the terminology is kinetic. It was just kinetic. It was just enough action was happening for us to come back and feel like we were combat veterans is the term. A perfect example.
Okay, I got it. Enough went on there, such that you could like, all right.
We weren't running.
We're not on vacation.
Right. It was a real deployment.
Yeah.
Most of it was pretty quiet.
Okay. It's not bad,
No, yes, things go. We survive.
No news is good news sometimes. Right. Yeah.
But like a perfect example of that is came home and I'd been thinking about Domino's pizza for like 6 months, right? 7 months. I wanted a freaking Domino's pizza. And we get back and my mom and dad actually they came out and they had rented like a beach cabana because I was stationed out on Oahu. And so I've had a few drinks. I'm standing in this beach cabana, like I'm home for 10 hours. I weigh like 160, I'm a stick and I want a fucking pizza. And so I called Domino's and Domino's didn't deliver that far out. And so I start saying, like, demanding, like giving this poor person on the other end of Domino's, like an order, like, you will deliver this pizza to me. And she goes, I'm sorry, sir, we don't deliver there. We don't deliver that address. I'm like, You don't understand.
You don't understand what I've been doing.
I am a
who I
fucking
am.
combat veteran. You will bring me my pizza. And she's like, sorry, sir, I can't. And then hung up on me. There's a picture. Chris has a picture of me on the phone getting mad at Domino's. Like,
I mean, a video would be the priceless one.
ask
But,
Chris. I'll have to ask Chris. I don't think there's a video, but there's definitely
yeah,
being like a wife beater yelling at some poor lady on the other end.
yeah. Meanwhile, there's a Papa John's down the street, you know.
Well, I didn't have enough brain cells to figure that out.
No. Domino's, man. I'm a Papa John's guy. I like dipping sauce.
Dude, it didn't even matter. It
didn't matter. Exactly.
It could have been a DiGiorno, like that stuff's good, but like it could have been cardboard with pepperoni.
Because over there, you're eating what?
In Iraq, to be fair, we didn't eat that bad. Afghanistan, it was MREs. Or I'd say there's like a squad-sized MRE, but we ate these like packaged military rations for like 90%, 95% of our food over 7 months. Yeah.
They're not, and they're what? Dehydrated meals. Add water, heat them up.
Yeah. I think MREs actually aren't dehydrated. There might be some that you have to add water to, but no, you just heat it up and it's good to go. But yeah, Afghanistan was a totally different experience. We didn't have a main supply road. Our route, it's called an MSR, that came down to where we were operating. Everything for the first 4 or 5 months had to be airdropped in. So like a C-130 or a C-17 would fly over and they'd push out these pallets with like MREs, water, and mail. And that was our lifeline to the world.
There's no running water there, right? So was that your water supply?
Eventually yeah. For us, it was water bottles for everything. Like I didn't take an actual shower for 4 months. I took 2 water bottle showers. So I'd take like 3 or 4 water bottles with me. And
holy smokes.
Sets up. Yeah, there was about 4 months there where it was like, this is real manly living here.
This was what I signed up for.
Yeah, right. But it was, dude, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Those 4 months, those were the best months. It was that
you wanted that experience.
We got tested. I think the thing that a lot of guys starting to transition a little bit into the veteran conversation, what a lot of guys can really struggle with is never getting to do the job they trained for. And Iraq, if the Iraq deployment had been my only deployment, I probably would have struggled with it. But Afghanistan was everything that you needed to have happen in order to feel like you had been tested happened, at least to my platoon. And so you could walk away from it, you know, with mental issues and being exhausted and worn out. But you wanted so when you exit the military and you become a civilian again, you're stripped of your identity, right? You lose who you are. And so the guys who saw shit, were tested, could still carry that with them. And I think that helps the transition. Guys who never got to be, Providence never put them in a position to be tested. When their identity is stripped away, when they become a civilian again, I think that actually kind of ironic. I don't know.
It's harder for them.
Yeah, that's my experience.
For certain cases.
Yeah,
it's fun. It's interesting. I mean, it makes sense. It's like you basically want to get to like the closest to the edge of like the abyss without falling in.
Well, yeah,
you want to experience the things that you train for, but you don't want to obviously get shot in the face.
Right. Nobody's rooting for that.
Get blown up, you know.
But think about your lacrosse career. Like if you had busted your ass, and then you get onto the team at Duke, sidelined the entire time. Yeah. You never get to play a minute of live lacrosse at the collegiate level. That's what these guys are feeling. It's like they're humiliated. They shouldn't be, but are. And
Yeah. It's out of there. It's out of the, he said providence is a good word, it's like, and again, another sports sort of comparison. I think it was the pandemic. It's just like all these teams would just play, they would just scrimmage themselves, and there's practice, and they practice, and like their season was just like, it was just like, hammering each other, like, what are we doing, without seeing another color jersey, without actually, going into having a game. There's an element of like, let's keep with the sports for one more minute, of like, when you're going against someone like a stranger, I don't know who this guy is, I don't even know, I might know his name. I don't know, he doesn't look familiar. There's an uncomfortableness to that, unlike if you're just if I was going against you in the game, like, I know Tony, we're buddies and everything like that. It's more comfortable,
There's no real adversary. You haven't, like, I don't think you're gonna, it's not gonna sit well with you, how far you're able to push yourself if you never had a true adversary, right? Like, if you guys play, the number one team in the nation, and you're going up against a guy that is like a top 100, top 10 recruit coming out of high school, and, and then you literally square up with them. There's a ground ball and it's you and him. You're gonna wreck face, right? Like that. That's the moment. That's for the infantry guy. The other dude is the Taliban, and you get all the way down to that lacrosse ball on the field, and you're both honed in on it, and you're not thinking about anything else. You're going for that ground ball, right? Like, you're gonna get that freaking ground ball, and nothing else matters. It's not like you're deliberately not thinking about anything. It's just you're so laser focused on getting that if you've never been faced with the real adversary, then you don't know what that feels like. And I think everybody that tries to join a combat arms MOS or job wants to know what that feels like. They're all in some way driven to understand what that moment's like. And if they go through all that effort and pain and sacrifice and never get to experience that moment, well, then
they might second guess the whole process, second guess the decision to go there, because I was never able to either confirm or deny my decision to do this thing.
Resentment's definitely,
and it's like the same thing as like, again, sports. It's like, all right, well, just take boxing, because I think that might be maybe a better example. So if like you train, it's great. I feel hard, I'm strong, I'm confident, I'm fast. You get in there and you get knocked out in the first round, and you're like, maybe boxing's not for me. It's like, I don't know. It's,
and then you have the guy that just gets up over and over.
You never go
brain damage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, I get that. It makes sense. But it's because usually you think about people that have a hard time about coming back into civilian life are those that experienced too much of it, such that there's like that scarring that went on. I mean,
it's so nuanced that I don't think I know a single guy, and this could be totally wrong. So take what I'm saying with an understanding that this is my experience and my perspective.
Yes.
Difficult to know what's going on in other people's minds, but I can't say that I know a single guy that truly wakes up with cold sweats and is only bothered by the combat moments of his experience.
Yeah.
I argue that all of us are bothered by stuff that we did not expect to be bothered by. The way that I've explained it to my wife is there are the moments where you come into contact with the collateral damage of war and the stuff that you never prepared for, you never trained for, you never put yourself in that mental state and imagined it over and over and over again. Those are the moments, both when you're getting out of the military and you didn't expect, like, you didn't know what it felt like to lose your identity, or when you're in combat. And it's not like, using your weapon to kill a Taliban fighter is not going to carry the same amount of emotional destructive power as having or accidentally or whatever killing a child, right? Like that's a very, anybody can understand that. So when you see civilian casualties or you stuff, the collateral damage, the stuff that shouldn't happen but happens, that's where
it's the stuff that you don't yeah, as you said, you don't expect or you can imagine. You're never, it's not as advertised. You didn't train for this. You're there to kill the enemy.
Exactly.
And so when that happens, you're like, this is what I'm here to do. I've
and you have this like
rehearsed it many times.
A lot of guys probably, this might sound grotesque to some people, but a lot of people have a professional satisfaction when they kill the enemy. Like, I'm not saying that they're going to revel in it or they're going to, glorify it. Some guys do, but I think most people, they at least have this like internal, like we were trying to kill each other and I killed him.
Yeah, I got the ground ball.
It's as simple. Yeah, you got the ground ball. It's as simple as that. Doesn't make you better or worse than that person, but in that moment, you were faster.
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
Yeah. Were you into it? Yeah, that wasn't necessarily you. You don't have that sort of bloodlust.
No, I didn't. What I found peculiar about combat that I didn't expect was I wasn't chasing a kill or anything like that. But I loved being in combat. It is
interesting.
It's the best place to be.
Holy
like this,
shit.
So messed up, but the peace of mind that came over me. Now, I never had a truly hairy situation, right? I never was, running down alleyways in Fallujah with RPGs blowing up at my ankles, losing buddies left and right of me. Like that's a hairy situation. And I don't think that my response to that would have been the same. All of the firefights I was involved in were 200 meters away from the Taliban, 150 meters away from the Taliban. But my mind just kind of like went into chill mode. I don't know how to explain it. It just, all of the, maybe I have ADHD, so maybe all of the like sensory stimulus allowed me to focus, or the adrenaline just kind of like got me a little high. I don't know, but firefight I was in felt like I just had this clarity of mind. I was totally relaxed. You're
in the zone.
Yeah, but you're in the zone in almost like a euphoric way. And so that was kind of confusing, afterwards, as you're kind of being retrospective and thinking about the event, either that night or the next day. You're a little bit like, am I a sociopath? Like, why did I have that response? But no, and I didn't, honestly, I'll be honest with you, I did not know anybody that had like a bloodlust. I think that everybody understood what we were doing and the gravity of what we were doing. And people used their weapons when they had to use their weapons, and use them effectively. Sometimes they pull the trigger a little bit too much and wasted too much ammunition, but people get excited. So, but yeah.
Trigger happy.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, first time you get into a firefight, you're going to pull that trigger a lot.
Yeah.
That you're pulling the trigger a lot. It's just how it works.
All right, brother. I'm going to pause it. Okay, we're on part 2 now with Mr. Tony Peck, or Garish, though. Garish.
Well, so
now,
but it's technically still Peck, I think. I mean, that my ID says Peck, but yeah,
whatever.
It's the adoption. So
cool.
Be awesome.
Guess what day it is right now. It's over here. So, no. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers, sir.
It's 12:13 on my clock. Happy Veterans Day. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. I was walking. I mean, this is a conversation for another day, but I started working in real estate and
Really?
like real estate development. Yeah, building and developing and stuff like that. Helping out this guy. He's doing a lot of work up in Kensington, 10 minutes north of me.
Yeah.
And I was doing something for him walking last week to one of the properties. There was a guy in uniform. Whenever I see someone in uniform, I always say thank you.
Well, it's appreciated. It's an interesting.
It's appreciated. Yeah.
It is. It's an interesting conversation piece amongst veterans, though.
Uh-huh.
It's like the grass is always greener, and the thing that I always have to remind myself is, at least we live in a country that appreciates when people sacrifice something in that way. And 30, 40 years, 50 years ago, we didn't. And the veterans of not the Civil War. I'm reading a Civil War book right now of Vietnam. They didn't get that kind of appreciation when they came home. And so there's a lot of vets that'll like
the VA. When the VA was started, just saw this. 89.
It's 89. I would have guessed it would have been earlier. That's surprising.
Later than I thought. Yeah, exactly right.
That's interesting. Yeah, I had no idea. The VA is like this. Talk about an adversary, right? Like, I think more veterans have a deeper seated loathing for the VA than they do the Taliban or Al Qaeda.
It's like the enemy or that you don't know, or something like that.
Yeah.
Keep your enemies close, but your friends closer.
Yeah, or just fuck the VA.
What is it like? Is it so bureaucratic that nothing gets done or something?
So there are a lot of people that
promise you the moon
for veterans at the VA, right? Like there are plenty of people out there that truly care about veterans working and are working very hard. There was a period of time where the VA was very backlogged. The employees oftentimes were not the best, and you had a lot of veterans who had very bad experiences.
Bad experiences deployed or with the VA.
With the VA.
Okay.
There's all sorts of stuff going on.
I got you.
But yeah,
need more funding, need more bodies. Need
probably
less bodies, less bureaucracy. Needs not to be a government agency.
Yeah. Yes to everything that you just said.
Maybe we start something, me and you, privatize it.
Well, we could try.
I'll start fundraising like yesterday.
we need trillions.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, Congress is just giving away money at this point. Maybe we can get some of it, but yeah, I think the VA has largely fixed its issues at this point. That's
good. Good.
Yeah.
So, do you? I mean, you were in the zone, and also sort of like a euphoric sort of thing when you're in like a firefight, when you're in combat, whatever.
Yeah.
How many times did that actually happen?
Like real firefights for me?
Yeah, I mean, you tell me.
So there's a difference between getting shot at a couple times, like being near an IED or something, or like real firefights. So real firefights. You said, I think, combat, right? Yeah, like actual where you're slugging it out with 2 or more Taliban members. There was really, I would say the climax of the deployment was a 5-day operation that we did. There was there's a place in Afghanistan called Marja, and there was this operation called Operation Mashtarak, and the battalion that I was with was one of 3 Marine infantry battalions. You had 2 battalions from 6th Marines, and then us from 3rd Marines. And then a couple of Afghan National Army battalions that seized this, you can't really call it a city, but this population dense region of Helmand province. So there was, right before the operation commenced, my section, so there's maybe 16 Marines, plus we had a sniper team, and we had a couple trucks of Afghan National Army guys. We were supposed to insert with a British Army platoon, but their vehicles couldn't off-road to where we needed to get to. Only ours could. And surprisingly, Ford Rangers. So advertisement for Ford, this channel. The Ford Rangers that were being sold to the Afghan National Army or given to them could off-road better than British military off-road vehicles. America.
How the heck did they get them? Right.
Dude, I don't know. The British had some goofy vehicles. Like they just I don't know, it's like tea and crumpets.
No, I mean, yeah, like Land Rover, Range Rover. That's like notoriously like not a very good company or vehicle.
Well, we got our mission brief
breakdown
from the British officer, and we didn't understand what the fuck this guy said. Like he had the most rural English accent,
like Cockney.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Like, but so difficult to.
Yeah.
In there, we looked like a bunch of idiots. We're like, "Sir, what did you say?" And he was wearing a cape. Either he or another guy was wearing a cape.
Sounds like
the British did. Yeah, they didn't make it to the firefight. Is what I'm saying. So they acted along the way.
You ever see The Man Who Would Be King?
I have not.
You got to see that movie. It's Sean Connery and Michael Caine. It's like couple of Brits or South Africans are just like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna go conquer one of the stands, and basically this is like, I don't know when it was. I mean, the movie was made, I think, in the 80s, but like maybe set back, I don't know when, maybe early 1900s, early 20th century. And basically they're just like really good like salesmen. Just like, and they're confident as all get out, and they're just like waltz on in there, and they convince everyone. The man who would be king. They were like, hey, we're gonna go. I want to be king. We're gonna take over this area and, you know, put a crown and convince everyone that this is what we're doing and this is what you should do.
The British bamboozled the world.
I don't know, but you know, like, I mean, yeah, I mean, the largest empire of all time, Britain.
Yep.
You know, and everyone's like, looks at a map, you're like, what? But if you add up,
and they did it with like barely a very tiny standing
navy,
or their navy was pretty big. Their army was like minuscule, and so they created these colonial dynamics.
Correct.
They would put a minority in charge of a majority, and
really?
Oh yeah. So that's
speak to that if you don't mind.
This is you're causing me
down a rabbit hole here.
I wish there was a rabbit hole worth of information stored in this brain, but it's more of just an empty closet at this point.
Hey, you know what? We could do a history podcast another time. You know, did you shoot anyone? Did you shoot anybody that you know of?
Segue. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I did.
Dead?
Well, I would assume so. I'll tell you about it. So, there's two sides to this answer. One of which is I was a vehicle commander, so my job was not necessarily to engage the enemy, but more direct fires. Not saying I was the best at directing fires or anything, but largely there was a few times where I would just shoot tracer rounds at where I was seeing muzzle flashes of Taliban shooting at us. And then my gunner we had a Mark 19 in the truck, which is a heavy machine gun that shoots grenades. And so he would just put grenades into where my tracers were going. He would follow my tracers. And then he was largely capable of just shooting muzzle flashes on his own. So who knows from that side of things. And then the other side of things, I was trained to use the Javelin missile and the TOW missile. So my actual job, I had a specialty within the infantry called anti-tank guided missileman. I was 0352, and I trained on what is called the TOW missile and the javelin. And fun little nomenclature tidbit: TOW stands for tube launch, optically tracked, wire guided missile. Anyways, like a copper wire spools out the back, and you can actually control the missile as it's moving.
Cool.
Like
and that you remember the acronym.
Well, it's
some things stuck.
Yeah, some very few things stuck. But so the javelin missile was a fire and forget, shoulder launched, anti-tank missile, and it had attack modes. It had a top attack and a direct attack mode. And one of the things that was kind of notoriously difficult about fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan is they would dig these, what they called murder holes, into the 3 foot wide mud walls of compounds. And so they would dig these holes, and then they set up their weapon on like a table or something, a couple feet behind the hole, and they would shoot at you through this hole. It was impossible to see where they were firing from. And
they're protected by that embankment, right?
Yep. Like 50 caliber wouldn't get through it. Mark 19 wouldn't get through it. So
it's like a castle idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, the little slits that they would shoot through. That's literally it. So I shot a javelin in top attack mode to get at a machine gun position on the other side of the mud wall. And then we went and did the next morning we went and did like a battle damage assessment, is what it's called. And there was an impact crater, or it wasn't really a crater, it was just impact debris and scorch marks on that corner. And I fired the missile and they stopped shooting from that murder. So it's impossible to say sometimes if you actually hit your target, but
they either ran out of ammunition, they either took that or took a nap, or they're no longer with us.
We were effective in firing the missile. It silenced the position.
That sounds like a really very politically correctly worded.
And yeah, right. I'm running. I need to what should I say?
Fucked up motherfuckers.
They all died.
Murder, death, kill.
I killed them all.
All right, so I want to we're going to transition to the veterans, and because it's Veterans Day, obviously. But I don't know when your experience doing deployed and everything, and you're in combat and all that, and you're shooting and you do the javelin thing, that was fulfilling to the silence of it.
That was the culmination of doing my job.
That's what I was.
There was satisfaction in it.
Yeah. You slept well that night, or whatever.
I slept really well that night, actually. It's very true.
I mean, that's what you're there to do, man. Mm-hmm. There, people are trying to kill us. The Al Qaeda, the Taliban killed thousands of people on 9/11. Mm-hmm. And continue to try to do that. And
what I would say that night, just to
got to strike back,
allow people to empathize with it. Think about like the hardest competitive sports game you ever played, where you won. What was that night's sleep like? It was that. It's like you went home, you were tired, you were happy, you're excited still. There was still some adrenaline, decent meal, and then you just racked the fuck out. It was that.
You probably slept and you didn't wake up until the morning.
Just out like a rock, no dream. I didn't move.
And it's also for people that might be like, WTF, be like, you know what? If someone enters my house, I'm going to kill them.
Mhm.
If someone enters our country as a house or whatever, and like, messes with us and then gets away with it, we're gonna find them and we're gonna kill them.
Mhm.
Similar idea. So thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, tell me that story before we jumped on the Zoom or the podcast, whatever. You're talking about you saw one of your superiors
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
Monument
Yeah, so I live
recently.
in Monument, which is a town just north of Colorado Springs, and it's a very conservative town. A lot of military folks live here. Colorado Springs, for those of you guys who don't know, is a hyper military town. There's a lot of military installations here.
That's in that Air Force HQ Ground Zero for Air Force.
It's so we've got what used to be Air Force Space Command is here, and Space Force was going to be here, but I think it went to Alabama. I can't remember, but we've got NORAD here, Cheyenne Mountain Complex. We got Fort Carson, which is an Army installation, Air Force Academy. Air Force has a huge presence here, and so does the Army.
Yeah.
But Monument's like a little bedroom community that's 10, 15 minutes north of Colorado Springs, and it's a lot of military families and retirees. But anyways, so I think this story, if I can tell it in a kind of linear way, really demonstrates a lot of like what it means to be a veteran, what you carry as a veteran, and then what's always kind of like rumbling underneath the surface for veterans. So in order to tell it, or in order for it to make sense of why it was impactful to see this guy the other day, I'll share a little bit about, one of the rough days of my deployments. So I had a close friend who ended up being killed he was lead Vic gunner, and an IED went off underneath his vehicle and it flipped upside down, and he was killed in the process. And I just so happened, my squad happened to be, we were what's called mounted. We were in vehicles, and we happened to be nearby, and so we were one of the first responding units to the scene. We set up a security cordon, but as we were heading out there, we stopped to pick up our company commander, and so that we could escort him, because we knew that there was a KIA. There was one KIA and there were 3 WIA, and medevacs were currently on the ground, so we had to stop off and get our company commander, who rode in my vehicle. And as we were driving out there, I had a gut feeling that I knew who had died, but I asked him, and he told me that it was my friend. So that's obviously a shock. But then we got there, and there were several very what I would say coincidental moments that occurred that evening. But one of the more striking moments for me was, this guy had lived with me. So he got married. His wife was very close with my ex-wife, and the two of them had moved in and lived in our guest bedroom for 6 months before the deployment. So we knew them very well. And it's dark out at this point, and I'm standing next to a couple other Marines, nondescript. I don't know who they are. We've already gotten the body out, and me and 3 other guys had loaded them up onto a Blackhawk. They'd flown away. And now I'm just kind of like standing there, chain smoking Marlboro Red, staring into this crater. And I don't know who's standing near me, or I can't make out features of anybody around me. It's dark out. There's some headlamps moving, but that's about it. And so this Marine walks up to me in the dark and goes, "Hey, are you with Weapons Company?" Close enough. We were detached at this point, but yeah, sure. And he goes, "Hey, can you make sure this gets to wherever it needs to get to?" And he handed me a folded up stack of photographs of my buddy and his wife. And it was just coincidence that this Marine was giving them to me. He was literally the first unit that arrived on scene, and he gives them to me. And, I'm a little bit like shell shocked, like, anyways, so yeah, I'll make sure. And then he walks away, and I'm just kind of sitting there, not really thinking. And next to me, my company commander happened to be the guy standing next to me, which I was not aware of. And he goes, "Did you know him?" And I say, "Yeah," or "Yes, sir." He goes, "All right. Do you know his wife?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "All right. Can you make sure that those get to her?" I said, "Yeah." And by the way, it took me 2 years to give them to her. It took me a long time. But so that was the last time I had a real human interaction with this guy. After that, I was like, our platoon was way down south in the AO. It was just coincidence that we were up there for that event anyways. We got back, he moved to a different unit. I just didn't interact with this guy again, conversationally. And so that was in April of 2010. And last Sunday, and that was in Afghanistan, last time I saw him, and we were stationed in Hawaii. That's where our unit was from. And last Sunday, I take my boys out to like basically a hole in the wall diner here in town. And I'm leaving. I got my two boys crawling all over me, and I look over at this booth next to the door, and there's this guy, and he's sitting across the table from this other guy who I don't recognize, but I recognize him, and my brain is, like trying to catch up.
Yeah.
I know him. He's a Marine. Who is that? Wow. I walk over to him and go, "Hey, what is your name? What's your last name?" And he goes, he tells me his last name. And I go, "I'm Corporal Peck. I was with you in Afghanistan, Weapons Company 1-3. And his face, he just goes slack-jawed, like, oh my God. And he was the company commander in Iraq. I lost another friend, boot camp and everything with. And then he was the company commander when we lost my close buddy. And it did not go well for him. So he got out as a major. I think he was medically separated. He had some surgeries. I don't know what they were for. He became addicted to opiates, painkillers. I think long addiction. Seemed like he was still in pretty rough physical shape. But now he's an addiction counselor at a rehab facility up here in town. And he lives in Monument, right on the other side of the highway from me. And so I walk away from this conversation with him. Like, we share all this information in probably 2 minutes, right? And it's just like, I was shaking. My hand was shaking. His hands were shaking. Like,
it's a lot.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting it. It's a Sunday, kids, I'm thinking like, whatever. But I get out, I get my kids into the car seats, and I call my wife and I go, "Hey, I just saw my commanding officer from Afghanistan." And like, I'm shaking right now. It was just, and so the way that I explained it to her was, it's like you're at a restaurant and you're eating a meal, and all of a sudden a fucking giraffe comes running through the restaurant. And it's like, yo, you don't belong in here. You should be in your fucking cage. Get back in your cage. That's what this was. It was like, you don't, like, to this guy, like, you don't belong in my life anymore. You should be shelved up here, away, put away, orderly, nice and neat. Like, I've dealt with you. And all of my memories, like, you've been sorted, you've been processed. I don't deal with you anymore. I've moved on. I'm a dad. I, deal with real estate shit. I, have normal domestic problems now. And, but seeing the giraffe run through the restaurant was so startling that it just brought up, and the way I explained it to Rachel is, on Saturday, if I had thought of that moment standing on the crater looking into this huge crater from where my buddy had died, I wouldn't have had an emotional reaction. But because I came face to face with it at this restaurant, now all of a sudden the emotion welled up, and all of a sudden all that color popped back into the memory. Like, it wasn't black and white, it wasn't dulled down anymore. It was real. So I spent the rest of the day just kind of in this weird haze of like emotional remembering. But the reason this story, I think, really is pertinent to Veterans Day is, here's a man, this guy, who was my commanding officer, and he got out as a major, and he was in charge of 150 Marines in Afghanistan. And he has clearly had a rough go of it since. And I don't say that in any sort of degrading way or any judgment or anything. It's just his journey has not been an easy one since that moment in Afghanistan.
I mean, Providence.
Providence, yeah.
I mean, it's sometimes it comes down to that, or just the bounce of the ball or whatever it might be, Like, sorry, keep going.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what it is. I agree 100%. And I've been incredibly lucky. And when I got out, I had, I got divorced and I left the military and I was broke. But my parents let me stay with them while I got back on my feet. Like, I had this convalescence period, right? And I went back to school. And so there was really like 4 years when I was getting my makes that I could just be useless and still be productive, if that makes
sense. Yeah.
And then I extended it by getting a master's.
Yeah.
And then I met an incredible woman who I now know I'm very lucky to have met, because we work well together and we have 2 beautiful children. And I have been so lucky and have been able to navigate the reintegration into society as a civilian, largely due to circumstance. And whereas this guy, who you would think started at a better position than I did, I was younger, I had less maturity, I had less resources. And for whatever reason, I was able to navigate things not better, just, they were easier for me. But it didn't matter, because in that moment when we saw each other and we shared that moment together last Sunday, it was like this shock to the system for both of us. I could tell he was affected by it and I was affected by it. And one of the things I was talking about with Rachel that night was, it's interesting because it's been 11 and a half years. I see this guy, and all of the hierarchy of the military is gone. He's not my commanding officer. I'm not an NCO. It's just 2 dudes in a shitty diner in Monument, sharing an intense moment together, remembering in a way that neither one of us wanted to, a very startling moment from over a decade in the past. And I just think that encapsulates what I can't speak to every veteran's experience, but I can speak to my experience, which I think applies to a lot of combat veterans, a lot of guys who went over and saw what I saw or worse. And the successful guys, the guys who succeed in reintegrating and then getting back to it, I would say, are able to compartmentalize, shelve that shit, and move on. And the ones who struggle are less capable of doing that. Not saying that they're less capable people. They just struggle more with compartmentalizing their experiences.
You said a line that you just said about your then commanding officer, not better, but easier for me, you know? And I think that's what you're saying right now, is that, like, you know, some people can do it. I mean, I don't know. They might. It's so hard to figure to put your finger on, like, hey, is it the is it the nature or is it the nurture of the person, right? Does he not have the natural, is he like born with different not as good as ability for him, for whoever it might be, to readapt? Or should he have, I don't know, are things that he or she could have done to help get back into society or something? But you can have that debate, but sometimes it's just like, you know, it's the kind of the hand you're dealt, you know. It's easier for some than others, you know. But yeah, go ahead. You go ahead. I kind of jumped in again.
Well, I don't really know if I have any like clear and easy way to
so
play.
It was, yeah. So nowadays, you know, coming back into civilian life is, you know, not, how was it for you?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I would say that most people who meet me now would have no idea that I was in the military, let alone an infantry Marine.
Yeah.
You know, like they just, I don't come across like that anymore.
And you'd probably take that as like a compliment. I mean,
yeah, it's a compliment when it comes up. You know, it's like I'm not really. Yeah, well, there's always like the part, like the guy side of me. It's like, I've been through shit. Like, you should know that I've been through shit, and
yeah.
It's like that petty side, but
yeah,
for the most part, like it just.
But so, you're not there now anymore. You know,
here's a perfect way to speak to it. So I've been through, I think, I've been through 2 serious rounds of therapy for my military experiences. Like, for whatever reason, things just, you know, life got to a point where it's like, all right, I need to go talk this through with an expert. So I've gone through that process twice. And at the end of the second time, which was right after the birth of my first son, you know, we had it, like, when you have your first kid, it is a mind fuck. You're like, I'm a failure. I'm not prepared. I need to be more of a man. Like, what am I doing? I'm wasting time. So all that on top of like the stress of life and work and handling any sort of.
I saying more like they're having the son is, you know, there's not worth in that, or I need to do more. I need to put myself outside of just having a kid.
When you have your first kid, it's all I'm not, for me.
Yeah.
My response was, I need to rise to the occasion and be the father and the husband that this child and this wife.
Yeah.
And I have to fight a lot and work a lot to get there.
Yeah.
And so it's a very startling thing. And I think that kind of shook me. And so a lot of like stuff that was underneath the surface kind of bubbled up from my military time. And so I went and saw a therapist, and we did cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, I think is what it's called. It's like, I think there's real mechanics to what's happening, but you basically just like close your eyes and retell a moment in all of its sensory detail, if I'm remembering. And dude, I got to a point where it's like, I'm indulging. Like I'm to the point where I'm just indulging in this misery. And I came home, I told Rachel, that's the last time I ever talk about this.
Yeah.
With like in a therapy session. And I just shelved it, just put it away. And you have to work to get to that point. And it's healthy to ignore your problems, but I think it's healthy that once you've processed it, just stop indulging in it. And
romanticizing it or something.
Well, that's a huge thing, man. Like, I think a lot of veterans come out and they romanticize their experience in their head. And
to take another, like, kind of like maybe probably crude comparison, it's just like the athletes that like always talk about their heyday, or they never quite gotten past.
That's not a crude comparison. That is probably, when it comes down to it, like for like, apple for apples, that's probably one of the best comparisons you can make, honestly. It's a competitive endeavor. You train, you achieve, you have moments of glory, and then you're no longer that thing. You lose the identity.
And it goes to like what you just said, the whole story about running into that guy at the diner. It's just like, come on, bro. It's good to see you, but like, I'm 10, 11 years post in a totally different place, stage. I don't know, you tell me better or whatever, but just I've shelved those experiences such that I can be a father, a husband, and be successful in what you're doing professionally, which, like, the ability to do that allows you to move on.
And the interesting thing is it took a decade to get there, right? Like, it was a very slow, gradual process to get to a place where I could shelve shit and move through life in a semi-comfortable way, in a nice, comfortable, just like, where I'm not walking out into the street and getting, sensory overload and anxiety and stuff like that. But like, I feel like I can be relatively normal now. But it took a long time and a lot of conversation. One thing that I am definitely, that maybe is a little different than a lot of my peers or just a lot of veterans, is I'm a talker. I will talk through a thing until people just want to, fuck you, Tony, I'm done talking to you, bye. But that helps me process, and
it's a huge advantage
it is
to be a talker and also to be secure and confident, and willing, it just goes with confidence to talk about some hard stuff. It's the best way to I think it's the best way to like get to truth about self, whether it's bad or good or whatever. Just a conversation, usually for me anyway, takes me to a deeper understanding of whatever I'm trying to understand when I'm talking about it with somebody else.
I totally agree.
Especially, I mean, with therapy, I can see a therapist every like 2-3 weeks. And I saw him today, or actually I talked to him on the phone.
Phoning in your therapy sessions. I
forgot about it. I forget about my therapy thing. Like,
it's awesome.
Every other time, and like, sorry, Andy, it's nothing against you, bro.
Right? You feel guilty for like showing.
Yeah. I'm not like, I value our time. But like, I just got this new job. I left Home Depot, and I got a ton of lumber in the back, and I'm like, everything's good with me, and everything's fine. Well, how about everything's? I think everything's good. I'm content, and I border on happiness. And he's like,
it's dangerous territory.
He's like, all right, but we got to do a session. I'm like, okay, fine, sorry, but see you in a week. You're not charging me for this, are you?
I am.
Yeah, like a
$30 phone call,
like a lawyer.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Anyway, we can keep rapping all night long if you want.
Well,
but like, anything else you want to hit, or talk about on Veterans Day?
You and I, before we started recording, I think something that I wish, and to tie it all back in, like I got in a lot of trouble in boot camp because my way of processing difficult situations is to not take it seriously.
Laugh your way through it.
Yeah. And even if I deep down inside understand the seriousness, the gravity of the situation, I'll superficially I'm laughing about it. And that's eased a lot since, you know, I've gotten older. But one thing that I wish more of my peers or just veterans in general could do would be to not take themselves so seriously. Like, take what happened seriously, respect the moments that deserve to be respected, but also, you know, just kind of don't be so uptight about what happened to you. Like, the only way that you're going to be able to survive in this life is if you just loosen up a bit and find some joy in normal moments. And I know they do. And so I don't want this to sound patronizing or anything, or like lecturing, or like I have a secret they don't. I just, for a lot of my peers, I wish that they could just, you know, loosen up some. And I think that it goes a long way. Laugh at yourself some. Don't take yourself so seriously. Like, we were all young kids, and we pushed ourselves to the brink.
Yeah.
Full of occasions, and we should be proud of that. But we were also idiots who did a lot of shit that I won't repeat on a recorded, you know, Zoom call. And but we were kids. We were kids, and we were asked to do very adult things. And you know, I don't know, just
It's well said. I mean, it's well said.
Loosen up a bit.
I mean, you chose military almost to find yourself or to grow up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people, I think, from what I've gathered, sort of from our conversation, sometimes people choose military to prove themselves, which I think is different. And like you've said it on a couple of occasions, to your ability to shelve things, you know, if it's I mean, if taking the approach that, like, hey, I am like GI Joe, I am military, you know, I am this, it's like, it can be detrimental, I would think. And like, to be able to be like, all right, that was then, all right, as best I can compartmentalize it and move on. And like you said it, I'm a huge advocate of sense of humor, you know, like,
absolutely.
And I guess sometimes it can be hard when you're in, you know, harm's way, but like, I don't know, if you've lost that, you might have lost everything.
Well, here's a perfect story to go with that, man. We were that javelin shot where I took out the or maybe didn't, but, you know, shot at the machine gun.
Silence.
I got up on the berm, so I had to expose myself to take this shot. And sorry, my dog is. And they were shooting at me. And they knew that I had something on my shoulder, and there were rounds cracking by me. And so I was a little nervous getting up there. I'm not gonna lie, you know, was puckered up. And I had to take my helmet off so that I could see through the lens correctly, the sight. And anyways, I'm fully exposed up on this berm. Very, very critical moment of the day. And rounds are flying by within feet or inches. You know, they're cracking past me. And
you see him as like light, like
I'm looking through the sight. I'm not like, I am in this sight.
You're not taking, yeah, you know.
I can hear the rounds as they
That's
crack. But
spectating. Yeah.
yeah, I'm ignoring it as much as I can. And but the sight is what I'm seeing is it's blacked out. And so I'm going through, I literally went through like error commands and like trying to reboot the system because the sight's blacked out. And I probably did that for about 30 seconds. It felt like 5 minutes, but I was probably up there for 30 seconds, fully exposed, running through all of my like diagnostic tests of the sight unit. It's called the command launch unit that the missile's attached to, trying to get this thing to work. And then I realized the lens cover was still on the sight. And
it's like the camera that your dad's using that, you know,
right.
Yeah, take off the thing.
The lens.
It's
yes. And I had, I don't know, at least a couple Taliban dudes trying to kill me.
Yeah.
And I realized this lens cover on. So I remember sitting up and my buddy was sitting right here and he'd been trying to film it with a camera. The camera, luckily, the battery had died while I was trying to figure this out. And so there's no evidence. We have a video of the javelin shot, but no evidence that the lens cover was on. But I
outside of your testimonial,
right? My buddy's looking at me from behind the berm, and I'm looking at him, and I reach over, and I grab the lens cover and I take it off, and I gave him the little like heads up nod, like I'm an idiot. And then I went back and I just hear him start laughing his ass off. And like there's machine gun fire going off. I mean, it is in the middle of a firefight. Frankie, stop. And
Jesus Christ, to be able to do that and laugh. Like,
yeah, you just gotta laugh about it, dude. Like
I know. I think you're the exception to the rule. Like
I am
and
have
like,
enough brain damage where that
yeah, like you're not wrong, bro. You're not wrong at all. Like it's kind of funny that when you're like when everything started to go on, right, you felt very relaxed and like a little bit of a euphoria, as you say, but like that's serious. Like, you know, I don't know. It's like I don't know. That's either just you, who your DNA, how you're built. Everyone got a similar sort of like training, you know, but like and I probably you probably have talked about this with your guys over there and whatever. Like, did you feel like that? Like, it felt really relaxed and felt really good. And like, I don't think many people would say like, yeah, I felt like that too.
I would say enough people experience like tangentially experience that. You know, kind of in closing, I think a really good little story that highlights that is so our first day out on that 5-day operation was the sun was setting and the Taliban hit us with like, I don't know, 7 or 8 RPGs, a bunch of machine gun fire, like from like 180 or 270 degrees. Like they were hitting us from all angles. It was a very intense, like 10 or 11 minutes. And we shot 50% of our ammunition that we brought out with us in order to achieve any sort of fire superiority and suppress the enemy. And we fired so much ammo, the next morning they had to fly in an ammo resupply helicopter to resupply us. That then got shot or shot at. So after that first night, that first big firefight, it was the first big firefight of that scale that any of us have been in. We're all sitting in my vehicle with my platoon commander, me, my driver, my dismount, and my gunner. And it's nighttime, and it's really cool. Like we've got our white and black thermal heads-up displays down, and so we're like watching our sector of fire in front of us while we're all in there eating MREs in the dark, and it's nighttime, and it's probably like 11 or 12 at night. there's 5 grown men that just went through one of the most intense experiences that we ever would, had or will go through. And I don't remember what was said, but we all started to giggle, like uncontrollable giggling. And like, to the point where your sides hurt and
Oh
like,
my God. Belly laughing.
dude, but it was just the most, you were shaking with this like high-pitched squealing laughter. And all 5 of us, it was infectious. All 5 of us went through it. And I'm sure that there was some sort of like stress release happening there.
Cathartic.
Yeah, very cathartic, but it was just a release. We all went through it. And I know that a lot of guys go through a variation of that. But we just happen to be lucky in that the catalyst, whatever the catalyst had been, I can't remember what the comment was or what the conversation was, had been humor. So like we went through our little hysteria, our hysterical moment where our body was like shunting all of this built up adrenaline and chemical and tension, whatever. But we were doing it through humor. And so I remember that, like that memory to me is a fond one. And it was a bonding one with everyone in the truck. And a lot of guys aren't lucky enough for the catalyst to be a funny moment. But I was, and we were in the truck that night. And I never had a release like that again. I never had a moment where I had that much tension, because every firefight from then on out, I just was more and more comfortable, and everyone was more and more comfortable because we're becoming more and more experienced. But
did someone crack a joke?
I'm sure. And I have no idea what it was. Probably just
a simple joke. Like,
yeah.
Why the chicken crossed the road?
And then
everyone started laughing, and it just carried on because of kind of what you just been through. And it just carried on.
So I'm thinking, and I know that we're running long. So
whenever you What are you saying?
When I say that veterans lose their identity stripped away as they get out of the military, the version of that I want people who might not have experienced this to understand, because there's a lot of hubris involved here, is when you're 21, 22 years old, say you're a team leader or a squad leader, or just like, you fill in as a squad leader. I want you to picture walking through an Afghanistan village. You're in prime shape, best shape of your life. You've got 6, 7, 8 Marines out in a formation around you. They're all studs. They're all badass, and they're in the best shape of their life, and they listen to you. They answer to you in this moment. And you've got radios on your person that you could call in an airstrike or a medevac or an artillery strike if you needed it. You could call in QRF, which quick reaction force. You could call in 100, 200 Marines could be there within an hour or two, right? Like you are God walking through this village. You could destroy, you could flatten this village. You are capable and able. Like this is within your capability. If somebody looks at you, you look back with that knowledge, with that hubris and that ego and that swagger of, I could flatten everything you know. I could destroy it all, and I'm 21, 22 years old. Now, compare that to getting out of the military and sitting in a college classroom, having tasted that kind of perceived power, and now you're just a college student, and nobody cares and nobody understands what you've been through. or what you had achieved, that taste of power that you'd gotten to. And those are the moments where like you're this just like you're throwing a temper tantrum in your head. Like, don't you know who I am? Don't you understand what I was able to do?
I want Domino's pizza.
I bring me my
Where's my pizza?
I'm a combat veteran.
You bet you repeated that line over. I am a combat. Yeah.
And nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And that's just, you got to get right with that, man. You got to get to a place where, all right, nobody cares. I can die knowing that I did it. And nobody can take that away from me. But nobody else truly cares or understands. You know, nobody other than another person who went through it will ever be able to recognize what that felt like. And that's
truly empathize.
Yeah, that's why seeing that officer, you know, at the diner in that way, it's like there's this brief moment where you're standing across from somebody who truly gets it, and the weird thing is you don't want to be in that position anymore. I don't want other people to get it. I just want to move on and be who I am now and be okay with that.
Yeah. And I mean, what you went through has helped you get to where you are now, you know. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Not like you regret being in the military and doing what you did, you know.
No.
But that thing sort of like came to an end. Shelve it, compartmentalize it, think about it, talk about it, work on it, such that it could stay on the shelf so you can move on with life.
That's exactly it. That is a perfect summary. Yep.
You're awesome.
Thank you. You should tell my wife that. Tell my wife that you think that way.
Go wake her up.
Yeah, Rachel, he's actually a pretty decent guy. About him, buddy.
You're an impressive cat, you know. You know yourself.
I appreciate that. Man.
Yeah, I mean the most like Shakespeare said it, like to thine own self be true. To know yourself is the hardest thing in life, to really, really know, you know, and be secure with yourself and how you feel, and to allow for that to come out in everything you do as much as you can do, you know what I'm saying, is hard. So, and you're real, bro, you know, because
thank you.
You got it, man. I'm gonna play.
Means a lot.
Yeah. Can't wait to see you.
I was looking at tickets just a couple days ago. I got to get out there. I'll try and get out there either probably in January is what I'm hoping.
Let's look at some properties.
So yeah, once we get off the call, real quick, you're gonna have to.
Yeah. I will.
What do we got looking up here? Oh yeah, close it out. So they were still doing shit like this. They were hooking up speakers and playing like heavy metal music and stuff as like cycle operations in combat.
Say it again?
So like in Fallujah, like the Battle of Fallujah, I know they did this. They had these giant speakers up on Humvees and tanks, and they would blast like Metallica as they were going through the streets and blowing up buildings. And just
that might be like, yeah.
It's metal as fuck, dude. Like that's
metal, yeah. It's so this scene, right, from Apocalypse Now, the helicopters are like flying in or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the helicopters have big ass speakers on them.
Yeah.
Playing, it's not just piped in as part of like the soundtrack. You know what I'm saying?
They're literally
it's
blasting this shit.
actual quote unquote actual music in the movie. Like how
the Viet Cong are like, oh shit,
how
it's coming
over the top, like badass. Like
it's
coming in there.
It's such a great movie moment.
And also to think that, realistically, you think you can really hear the speakers that powerful to project the music over the sound of the helicopters?
My gut says no, but I don't know. I would like to believe that it was possible.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. It's awesome.
All right, Corporal Peck. Happy Veterans Day, bro.
Thanks, man.
You got it, man. Thanks for like carving out the time, as a father of,
well, thanks to you. It's the East Coast. It's 2:10 on your right. What time?
It's 1:15.
1:15 over there.
Oh my god. I'll be all right. All I gotta do is wake up tomorrow and be me.
There you go. That's all you got.
It's not that, when if you're ever struggling, just
wake up and be you, bro.
Just be you,
Just don't suck. Right. Don't be a shitty version of yourself. No pressure.
No pressure. All right, I'm hitting stop.
All right, man.
All right, bro. Thank you.